exclusively representing Zaka Jacob on Ram Mandir Pran Pratishtha ceremony. He goes on to say on Ram Mandir and Bharat reclaiming its lost glory. The External Affairs Minister is quoted saying that it's a huge moment for India. India is expressing confidence. We are no longer defensive of what we are, where we came from and our traditional beliefs. It's an important moment for India. That's what Dr. Jaishankar has said. Listen in as we get you this exclusive conversation.
So I do want to talk about the book. So in this book, Why Bharat Matters, you're referencing or using the Ramayana as a tent pole to look at India's foreign policy journey over the last 75 years. In your first book, The India Way, you referenced portions of the Mahabharata. And so why the Ramayana, and why are you looking at India's foreign policy through that prism?
Well, you know, if the purpose of a book is to communicate, and particularly because in this particular case, I'm trying to communicate to not necessarily specialists or academics or foreign policy people, but a world beyond that, that look, foreign policy matters, don't switch off when it appears in on your radar. Then you need to communicate something to which people will easily relate. Now, the fact is, often to people whose lives have been spent in foreign policy, everything is self-evident, everything is interesting. But to a lot of people, it's not. You know, that it's very arcane. They may not necessarily understand the complexities. I mean, they may not be bothered with a lot of this. So I wanted to use a set of metaphors and analogies and narratives to which any Indian would easily relate. So, I mean, they're not to be taken literally.
Sure, of course.
But if you say, if you look today at the world and say, well, sometimes you can have a major power which is very, which is overconfident. You have the example of Ravan, who feels he's invulnerable except he has chinks in his armor. And the human race is one of the important chinks. Or the idea of actually creating, having friends, building relationships, creating coalitions, to deal with complex problems. Or frankly, the very idea of diplomacy, that diplomacy is not something which people who necessarily, I mean, first of all, it is not something which is modern. It is as old as the human race. Two, it's a skill of a very complex kind. So if you give an example which people relate to, and I would say perhaps in the last year, more than any other analogy I have made, the Hanuman as a diplomat, I think, has resonated with a lot of people. So I must say there's a lot of trial and error in the, by the time I actually wrote the book, which is a lot of it came out of interactions with people, especially with younger people. And we are talking about something, and I say, do you know something like this? I mean, I'm giving you a Hanuman as an example. But there could be others, the power of knowledge, the fact that at various points of time, in fact, I've approached Vibhishan not in the traditional manner as a defecting brother, but actually as a source of knowledge. That he is actually someone who has critical moments when the things are going badly. He's actually able to come up with exactly the right inputs.
So one of the analogies, again, it's not a literal analogy, but you've used in the book, is about the 4 sons of Dashrath and how you're comparing that to the Quad countries. So what does that, I'm again looking at the sort of philosophical reasoning that here are 4 countries whose interests may not all the time align, but in critical areas align. and therefore they bring themselves together for what is a larger objective?
Well, I put it again, this one is very definitely not to be taken literally.
Sure.
And I made my point here was to illustrate a certain comfort. A certain comfort of shared traditions, of shared values, of shared systems to some degree. And the point is, today, as we become bigger and we count more in the calculations of others, our interests are greater and we too need more partners. Then I think diplomatically we face a very different situation, which is who do you work with on which issue? And you can't get, we are not one of those allied countries who have tied our fortunes to other people.
Yeah.
So we have to constantly make that judgment. So depending on the situation, depending on the issue, depending frankly on the interests of others and or naturally of ourselves. So I make that reference to purely as a comfort level factor. In fact, I make another reference, which is that there are countries, in this particular case, I have mentioned how Ravan sends a sorcerer to break up Lord Ram's alliance, that he tries to sow divisions. So this is part of international relations as well, Avid.
So I do want to ask you, because we are here, there's a momentous occasion happening very soon. The Ram Mandir in Ayodhya is going to get inaugurated. What I referenced in the introduction about Bharat and a civilizational state reclaiming its lost glory. Explain this moment, the inauguration of the Ram Mandir, the Pran Pratishtha, what this means for Bharat as a civilizational state. Explain it like you would to a foreigner, let's say.
Well, a lot of people outside our country are following it as well.
Yeah.
Because to me, in many ways, this is a hugely important moment. It is a moment when we are actually expressing our self-confidence, that we are no longer defensive about what we are, where we came from, what are our traditions and beliefs. Because somewhere, this is a debate in itself. What happened with us, we are not unique, it has happened with some other countries as well. People took the quest for progress and modernity as also a rejection of our own traditions and heritage. Some other countries have had them. So particularly in Asia, we have had countries with this situation. Even I mean, it's interesting on a matter of faith. I mean, I studied political science. So among things we did for a degree was actually you went through the debates in the Constituent Assembly and what did you could say like the founding fathers and such. So as a very pluralistic country, pluralistic in every sense, it is natural, it is right that people agreed that there would be equal respect for
of all faiths.
All faiths or all traditions. Or in a sense, equal respect for the pluralistic character of us.
Sure.
But equal respect then for reasons of politics, in a sense, became a kind of defensiveness about one's own beliefs and faiths. And I think over a period of time, the people of this country have reacted. Now, you asked me a very interesting question. How would you explain it to a foreigner? How do the foreigners view it? Look at it from a foreigner's point of view. If a country or a leadership or a nation or a society is itself constrained and hesitant to express its personality, why would you respect it? So that's why to me this is a very important moment of expressing, what we are, where we came from. It is a positive expression. It's not a it's not a negative one, and I think much of the world will take it in that spirit.
I do want to ask that. I mean, this is a political question. You said you're a student of political science, but the opposition is making this whole thing out to be like a political party's function or Mr. Modi's function, and therefore they're boycotting it. So what would you say to that?
I think people, look, you and I both live in this country. You can see today the enthusiasm in this country. And I don't think that enthusiasm is necessarily just political. I think people, all of us have people around us, who are not political people in that sense. Ask the, people with whom you have a daily rub in your lives. Are they excited about it? Do they get the importance of it? And I think you will see it as so. So I think there's a genuine today feeling in this country about what is happening, and I think to make it appear political is really in a way to trivialize it.
That was the exclusive conversation with Dr. S Jaishankar, talking about India's foreign policy, a historic and a momentous moment, and he also talks about that this is the